MIDDLEKAUFF! Baby, hey! What's up, everybody? I'm laughing because MIDDLEKAUFF put on the Tito's helmet. And you can't get your head all the way in, and I can't see it when you hold it that high.
No, I was going for a break, you know. 1, 2, 3 Tito's. 1, 2, 3 Tito's. I saw Ric Flair was at Titans practice, and he must have given like one of the end of practice speeches. And Tannehill or someone's like, break us down, Rick. I don't think Rick quite understood. And he's like, what do I, they're just like, 1, 2, 3, just pick something, whatever. And he's like, he didn't know what to do. And then a couple guys kind of helped him out. It was very awkward.
So he didn't say, what did he say, 1, 2, 3 Titans?
Yeah, but he's like, 1, 2, 3. It wasn't even very loud. A lot of famous people live for that moment, right? Like, 1, 2, 3 Eagles. They get a chance to like talk to the team, or 1, 2, 3 Niners, or 1, 2, 3 champions. I don't know if Rick quite understands the lingo of a team sport.
Probably right. How about Vince McMahon retired, John?
So you took over?
Who? Stephanie?
Yeah, and Nick Khan, the cowards and the big agent for all the media guys. I met him actually last year at the Volume Party. Very just impressive guy. I mean, I've heard about him forever. Very normal once you meet him. I mean, it wasn't like I was expecting like, what am I getting? Like Drew Rosenhaus here?
Yeah.
This kind of just was giving stories about Vince, and because he left the agent game to go be Vince's CEO. And then I think Vince is also sneaky like 80 years old. It's not like Vince is like 68.
Yeah. I just love that we talk about, like people talk about the WWE like it's anything but a business as opposed to like
booming business.
But it's like Vince was also a storyline in a show. Right? You hear me okay?
Yeah, I was like, saw something. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but oh yeah, I see what is happening. What do you mean? Like storyline, like he was a wrestler?
Well, I mean, Vince, there's a fake world in which Vince exists as a character, and then there's a real world in which Vince exists as the actual person in charge of the business.
As a guy worth like $1 billion?
Yeah. And it's like these two things are like, oh, is this Vince's last appearance? But it's a real human playing himself, but in like a fake world.
Yeah.
But when the real human is removed from the real business, he also has to be removed from the fake world. That's the part that it's
very bizarre. Yeah. Very bizarre.
What's up? What's up, everybody? That's not where we intended to start. I'm Guy. That's John. If you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Help us keep growing. Tell people that you like and that you think would like it about it. And even if you hate somebody, maybe tell them too, because maybe they might like it even though they hate you. And also check out our podcast down in the description below. You can listen to us. If you're listening to our podcast, you can check out our YouTube. We appreciate you consuming wherever you consume.
Share with your friends, share with your enemies. We should have, I feel like I'm not great at this when I'm having a one-on-one conversation. When they're like, what do you do? And you tell them, you're like, go subscribe. Like I just if they want to, they can do it. There are a lot of little kids there. We could influence the youth, like, hey guys, pull out your phones. Let's pull out the podcast app.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a move in the next week we do. Because I've seen a lot. What would you say the average 5 deep sitting down at the rope is? 11 years old. I mean, that's the people you want to influence. They're going to be around for a while.
The kids bring a ton of atmosphere.
Lot of atmosphere. I mean, I don't think as someone who never attended anything even close to this at their age, I hope they realize how pretty sweet that is. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's cooler depending on where you're sitting, I'd argue, than a game, especially like when the players come over to you after. Like most of these guys, they're sitting like the second or third fucking level of the bowl. That's cooler than the game. I mean, the coaches are walking right by you. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
There were some Niner one-on-one drills today that were happening right in front of a bunch of kids. And every catch, Aiyuk made a big one. The kids are going bananas. It's like a 5-yard out. And, the DB can't tackle. So the wide receiver goes by him, and the kids all react like it was an and one mixtape crossover. I mean, those are the kids that Amazon Prime did you see that Amazon Prime is doing an alternate Thursday Night Football broadcast with the guys from Dude Perfect?
Everyone makes fun of Dude Perfect. Like the
Who?
Masters let them shoot. I just think a lot of like credible people think that they got some scam going. Whatever they got going, I don't know much about them. It's working. They're really famous. They've made a ton of money. It's worked.
Here's what I would say about Dude Perfect is like, I think some people might think like, why is their football opinion matter any more than anybody else's? Those guys have a very specific, unique skill, and they got famous creating content that made me go, "Oh my God, I haven't seen." Like they were they are trick shot artists, and they made incredible content. Like they're not just some scrubs.
No, it shows you guys. If you walk to the top of Arrowhead Stadium, put a basketball hoop at the 50-yard line, and can kick a basketball and swish it in the net, you can have 50 million followers and have Jeff Bezos pay you a lot of money.
I mean, they put in the work, John.
Like when you think Dude Perfect, what do you think? Like when I say Dude Perfect? Yeah, but like
I think but they've created a whole, several other. I mean, their channel has like 58 million subs, I think. Have you ever seen like a 12-year-old kid wearing a flat bill, like some big old shades and a Dude Perfect tee? Because I have.
I have not.
Like they have created an army. They have an army of fans.
Clearly.
And it's really impressive.
I mean, if you and I were 12 years old, we would probably watch, right?
Salvador on the stream said, "Here's a shirt, Johnny. Tell your dad to subscribe." John.
I don't even follow you there, but
handing out stuff to the kids at Niners practice.
I got you. Oh, yeah.
Hand out some podcast business cards, maybe. Some business cards. Hey, a lot of buzz at Niner practice, John, about this podcast being once again sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's just celebrated his 25th anniversary. Tito's is a behemoth in the spirits game. It's award-winning. It is an incredible story of business and American ingenuity, survival, product and substance and quality over everything. 20 years, more than 20 years since Tito made his first batch distilled in the heart of Austin, Texas. And now,
Guy, I forget. It's already been a long day in the sun. Was it Jed York or Mike Shanahan that came up to us that said his favorite drink was a Tito soda?
I think it was together. They both stopped us. They said,
yeah.
Fellas, regardless of what MIDDLEKAUFF said yesterday about Jed's barber.
Jed had a hat on today.
Tito's. Oh, I didn't see him. Tito's. Yeah.
Mike said
Jimmy Garoppolo, hold on, I'll come back to you. I got to go talk to Ham about Tito's.
Well, I mean, I could tell we didn't talk to Jimmy, but if Jimmy was there, you're like, you seen this body? Tito's sodas only. That's what I drink. Tito's sodas. Mike Shanahan, Tito's sodas. Jed York, Tito's sodas. D lineman, John Daly's.
I love the ginger beer, but
Moscow Mule.
Yeah.
Pretty good one too.
I made one in a glass on Monday night, and someone said, "Where's the copper mug?" I was like, "I don't have. I need a copper mug, I guess."
Yeah. Order some on Amazon.
But Tito's is fantastic. We're big friends. We're big fans and big friends. We appreciate Devin and everybody at Tito's that brought them back for football season. We would love for you to share with us you enjoying Tito's. Send us, DM us photos of you hanging out with Tito's, as we will continue to do. And for recipes and more, go to titosvodka.com. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Yep. Tweet at us and Instagram at us. Just our names. At John MIDDLEKAUFF, at Guy Haberman. Twitter, Instagram. TikTok, I probably wouldn't even know how to repost you if that's even possible. And pictures of you guys drinking, or whatever involved in Tito's.
We got a lot of, remember last year we got a lot of photos of people's dogs with bottles of Tito's.
We did, yeah.
So, I actually got, I was thinking, should I wear this Tito's golf towel on I was thinking like you wear it out to practice, it's like a sweat rag.
Oh yeah. Got like a quarterback has on their pants, I gave out so many of those to just friends and family. People
I have to.
It's a great, I felt bad. I played the other day, wetting it and putting my ball in there. It's like, I don't want to get this thing dirty.
Brad on the stream says, "Let's have a clean chat. Sex bots, get the fuck out of here." Yeah, well, we're gonna see what we're gonna see, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep them out, man.
That's the beauty of listening to the pod. You don't get assaulted. All right. Let's start with Niners practice on Tuesday, August 2nd. We were there once again. And
Aiyuk have a few Titos before practice?
I think the number one story was Brandon Aiyuk came ready to scrap like it was Friday night at the old saloon, 11 a.m., and somebody was in his chair. I think you could say every day something with Brandon Aiyuk happens, and it's always been positive. But you can't go to a Niner practice and not notice Brandon Aiyuk. And we've talked about him a lot. I think there's a lot of buzz about Brandon Aiyuk's numbers, about Brandon Aiyuk's evolution, about Brandon Aiyuk's growing leadership. And I think we saw some of that today. He said something yesterday about all the talk. Fred Warner talks a lot. He got into it with him today. Several plays later, there was a hit that Fred Warner made on one of the other 49ers receivers, Marcus Johnson. And Brandon Aiyuk came flying out of nowhere as we saw it. Now, this is not a period.
I think hit's an understatement. Fred Warner depleted him.
Now, Marcus Johnson popped up, gave the first down signal.
Yeah,
but as he had his back turned, Brandon Aiyuk came flying in as we saw it. I don't know if there's any fans out there that filmed it from the stands. This was during an unfilmed period of practice. Brandon Aiyuk came flying in, and as we saw it, there's a crowd of people, comes flying in with his body and basically tackles Fred Warner from the side and started a whole other scrum.
My dad used to love this show called Nature, and it was on every Sunday night at like 8:00. And since I'm a big Animal Planet guy, and I love watching the top predators, whether it's lions, tigers, grizzly bears, just in their element. And the youth, as they grow, go from a baby to like, by the time you're one as a tiger or grizzly bear, whatever, you're close to full size. And different ones try to become the alpha of the pride or alpha of the area. And the NFL, because of how physical it is, like in basketball, you can become an alpha the way you play, but like Kevin Durant ain't shoving anybody. In football, there's such a physical element. To become a true alpha, like it kind of has to be with your body, right? Not just your production, but like you shoving a guy around or you physically dominating someone. And that's kind of what training camp, I don't care how established a team are, there's always going to be, because the nature of drafts, young guys and younger players establishing themselves, kind of, staking their claim. And it did feel like this was today an alpha moment for like a young tiger. Like, hey, motherfuckers, I'm not taking the shit anymore. Because you would say before this year, is if I would have told you Brandon Aiyuk's going to be messing with Fred Warner, you'd be like, what? That's crazy. Guy, he wasn't messing with Fred Warner. He was actively seeking him to fight him twice without hesitation. And listen, I'm dog sitting right now. The one thing that's cool about little dogs, and just dogs in general, but little dogs, they will go up without hesitation to a big dog and sometimes act like they're a lot tougher, even though they would get destroyed. But human beings like you and me would never, I don't care how much liquid courage, but unless like your wife or your mom or something was truly threatened, would try to shove around a guy who's way bigger than you. It's just common sense. You're like, I'm not messing with that guy. Yet part of football is like smaller guys flex to bigger guys. And it doesn't always happen. But like today was a moment where it felt like, hey, motherfucker, I'm your equal on this team. Even though you'd argue resume wise, Fred would be superior to him. But like, I'm not taking whatever. And who knows? Like, it feels like there's a little more than just yapping, like something happened. Even though I saw Mayoko just tweet something like Fred was talking a couple days ago, how like Aiyuk can be a special player. It was not like Fred. Who knows? It felt like watching it. This didn't just happen, right? Even the last couple days, there's been something brewing. Did something said in the offseason? I don't know. But I thought this was a true like young badass. Like I'm an alpha now, and not even just showing it to Fred, but like showing the team like I'm fearless. It was crazy to watch, I thought, twice, of just how unhesitant he was. Like a lot of times, like, and again, Trent Williams could beat up everyone on the team. No one's going to fight Trent Williams, and Trent Williams is fighting nobody. So it's not just because you fight someone doesn't mean anything. And fights have been happening in football practice from high school to the pros in the history of football. But this one felt a little more specific and especially the guy, he wasn't going after like, they just signed this dude from the Rams that him and Aiyuk have had a couple years of beef, right? This was like Fred Warner and him played together the whole time. Fred's like team captain.
Right.
It was, it felt like it was symbolic of something. It's hard to put
agree. I'll
the lack of hesitation on Aiyuk was pretty crazy, I thought.
Well, it was almost like he came to practice today wishing a motherfucker would, to quote Cedric the Entertainer, right?
But like that guy too. Like
that guy. That's what I'm talking about, him. But that's because of what you just said, right? Like funny people hang out with funny people, great musicians hang out with great musicians, 10s hang out with 10s. Brandon Aiyuk views himself as a 1. So he's not going to fight a 3. There's one clear guy on the defense that he could take on. He's not going to take on Bosa because Bosa's not talking to anybody. Fred is. Maybe he can fight with Jimmy, but Fred's bigger. Fred's bigger than Jimmy Ward, right?
But and to me, Jimmy Ward ain't a fighting practice guy.
No. In fact,
I know what you're saying though.
Like there is something symbolic to your point on Brandon Aiyuk taking on a guy that's bigger, and then Fred
kind
Warner
of shoving people around.
Fred Warner swung the door wide open when he depleted a receiver. Fred didn't hit a running back. He hit another receiver, and I do wonder,
killed him.
Where there is what's the saying? Like where there is a gap, water will fill. Like if you create a vacuum, something will fill that vacuum. Debo has not been around, right? Brandon Aiyuk's been around Trey Lance. Brandon Aiyuk has, in some de facto way through OTAs, became the leader of the receivers because Deebo Samuel, who had become the number 1 guy on the Niners offense, at least among the receivers and backs, was not around. And I do wonder if Aiyuk kind of views it like, I'm not saying I'm ahead of Deebo, but I am also a number 1 because that's how he's acting. He shows up he makes multiple plays every day in practice and he leads. And I thought what he did today was leadership. The degree to which he came flying in and hit Fred Warner, it wasn't hold me back. When I say he didn't, I'm doing a fist thing, but he didn't hit him with a fist. He just came flying in and tackled him. It's not hold me back, wait till the big guys get here. I mean, I think he sent a message, and I think when you take on somebody else's number 1 guy, you're saying, I just the way we talked yesterday, Nick Bosa and Trent Williams were going back and forth, talking to each other about drills and, going over some stuff. And then Trent Williams and George Kittle, like they are equals. And I think Brandon Aiyuk is saying, I am an equal, not in terms of just performance, but leadership on this team.
But this is where I use like the tiger analogy. Like a young tiger or young grizzly establishing like their alpha. They do it with someone older. Like Aiyuk hasn't been doing this as like Fred Warner was a starter on a Super Bowl team, right? Like Aiyuk was still in college. So part of like when you establish I'm an equal or I'm also an alpha, like you said, you swing up. You are like, I know I haven't been as long, and just last year I was in the doghouse, but like, I'm here to stay. Now, again, like it wasn't, I wonder if something specifically happened in a meeting room or something over time, or maybe it's just human nature. I mean, you and I were talking about in the practice field, the Derek Jeter doc and the dude that Jeter couldn't stand. And then the guy got traded and Jeter tried to act like, I had no pull. It's like, Derek, you were the star of the team. They got rid of him because they knew you hated him, but it's easy to play dumb. But not that that's this case, but not everyone is going to be. And I have no clue these two guys' relationship, but it may be fine. It doesn't feel, I mean, it's something that I wonder if it is a problem. It'll be something that Kyle would have both those guys in his office pretty quick. I mean, those are two of his better players, right? It's not, to me, it's one thing, and I've been to a lot of practices where fights happen where it's like, like a 6-rounder trying to prove that he's a starter against like the star D tackle, right? Or the 3rd-round wide receiver taking out the star safety, and like that should happen. It's a little unique when it's like, Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden. I'm not saying that's the case here, but like Brandon, I mean, 2 established starters, if you told me Aiyuk's a team captain this year, I think it's believable. Fred Warner definitely has been for several years running. It's just something to monitor on top of Aiyuk establishing him as alpha. Like, do they not like each other? Like that is kind of a question. Like, is there something more to it? Because Aiyuk specifically said something and then went after this guy twice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's less likely that he wouldn't say something publicly if there was like a real grudge there. You know what I mean? That he'd be if there was a real issue, that he'd be less likely to say something publicly. But
yeah, and part of it, the thing with football, even though they've been in pads 2 days, they have been practicing. I guess Fred, did he really do that much in the offseason? I remember him staying on the sideline a lot, so maybe not. Maybe there's part of it like I don't know. I mean, I could have a million theories. Just feels like Aiyuk's edgy in a good way.
Let's do you want to play? I wasn't planning, we weren't planning to do this, but I have right here. Do you want to revisit what the minute of what Kyle Juszczyk told us on the podcast about Brandon Aiyuk?
Yeah.
Let me pull this up here real quick.
Why not? It's good audio.
Love Brandon, man.
So this is from December of 21. Okay. Is that right? This was after, yeah. This was going into last season. So this is after Aiyuk's rookie year. Okay.
Oh, I love Brandon, man. I have a special relationship with Brandon because he has a locker right next to me. We pulled our hamstring the same day in training camp. So we literally went through the same rehab. We're with each other every single day. So I felt like I got a good inside look at Brandon and just how he ticks. And this is a guy that just wants to be great so bad. Like, he wants to put in that work. He wants to grind. And he just wants to do it. It's not something that he's being forced to or feels obligated. I was a first-round pick. I got to live up to these expectations. No, like this was in him. No matter what, this guy was going to want to be successful. And he wants somebody to follow. He wants a good veteran leader. And we had a couple at some points during the season. We had Mohamed Sanu in there for a little bit, but I feel like he would really benefit, how Debo did with having Emmanuel Sanders in the locker room. He just needs that mentor, that veteran receiver to show him exactly how it's done. Because if he sees it, he's going to emulate it and put his own style on it. And he's just going to be great, man, because he wants it so bad.
I mean, he was right. I think we can say now with hindsight, and I think we've reached the point where he is now the leader, Brandon Aiyuk.
Of the group?
I don't know if he's the leader of the group, but I don't think, he is a leader on the team. I think that much is clear.
I agree. Well, he's one of the better players on the team, pretty clear.
The other thing about it, you made a point to me.
They have talking to someone on the practice field that the Niners staff, I say they have high hopes for him. This would be an understatement.
You and Derek?
Yeah. Well, Kyle came over, whispered something. He's like, keep an eye on 11.
You said something to me before we started the show about John on the stream says maybe Fred is just legitimately annoying. Could be.
They're annoying guys in any office setting on any team, right? Just because you're good doesn't mean you might not be annoying. I mean, you watch that Jeter doc, you're like, God, A-Rod, fuck, would not want to play with that guy. He was the best player in the league,
Yeah.
And some guys that suck are really cool. So it's just, and sometimes, and again, I think as this goes a little longer, there'll be, the guys, the true beat reporters, boots on the ground, will try to get if there's a little riff there, or this was just more like just some good old fashioned alphaing, and Brandon establishing himself. That, you're not going to like everybody. Like, as long as they have the same mission, which they clearly do, hit people hard, everything will be fine. And the other thing is, if you are going to have two guys that have a little animosity, that might even be a stretch in this situation, because fights happen all the time in football. It starts, you're installing the offense and the defense against scout teams. Like, it's not how much they're not. They spend time together, like walking through the facility and stuff, but part of it is what makes football pretty unique, unlike the other sports, is like you're pretty separated when you're on the whatever unit you're on. Like, O linemen they're not around the DBs that often. right? I mean, they would be at like lunch and shit, but like football wise, they're not seeing them at practice because like you split up the field. I guess you do a little one-on-one depending on, but I don't think that much.
You made the point to me before we started about the personality of some of their best players. I think that's probably an appropriate point here.
Well, and again, I'm not comparing them to here. Don't think I'm trying to hype this team up like the late 90s, mid 90s Jeter-led Yankees. But you watch the captain, which I highly recommend. It is fantastic. And there is a seriousness to their core group. When you think Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera, Bernie Williams, they're very serious when it came to baseball, right? Like competing, winning, just Tino Martinez, like a lot of their core guy, Paul O'Neill, just all felt the same.
Did you say Bernie?
Who?
Bernie Williams?
Him? Didn't they kind of look, now talking about it, like a little patriot-y? Like they're not fucking around. Like
David Cohn?
They are there to win. Like that is the goal. You get around the Niners, like Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, I guess Fred's talking a little bit, but like their core guys, Juszczyk, Kittle, are their coaching staff. It is not a screw around group. It's why like a couple guys, younger guys that are always screaming, like really stand out. Not that they aren't even like core guys. They don't even play on the team, but there is not much. I vividly remember when I first started doing this and going to Niner practice with Harbaugh and just thinking how serious of a nature that their guys were. And Dante Whitner's out of practice, and he still carries himself kind of like that. Like Dante is a pretty just serious. You're like, if you didn't know, you wouldn't probably, because he's not the biggest guy, how big of a badass he was. But like once you realize why he fit in that crew. Frank, Justin Smith, Willis, Bowman, Staley, they're guys, Upati. You didn't hear a peep. It was just like practice, physical, serious, getting after it. And then obviously the team was awesome. This team, I think, and really has the last couple of years. I'll never forget when Sherman got here and started playing. You thought like Richards is outspoken, and it's like, nah, it's just that practice, like pretty locked in.
Yeah,
like, this isn't. I ain't playing grab ass out there. Jimmy Ward's another guy. Like you don't hear a peep from Jimmy Ward. He's just out there, serious. His reps. Hufanga fits perfectly in. Right. He just of that mold, locked in, dialed. Now we'll find out how good he is, but in terms of mindset, like, is it pretty clear why John Lynch loves the guy? Like, I mean, he is a serious fucking cat. And I would say this, most of the best teams, I'll never forget sitting there with you because your power's out. You came over to my house watching the NFC Championship game when Aaron Donald rallied the troops. We're like, they're fucked. And it turns out they were. But I think he's a great example. And he's represented like the one thing, it's weird. The Seattle Niner rivalry, Seattle was a lot louder at the time. Like, to me, the Richard of Seattle was a lot different than the Richard that came with the Niners. And who knows? Maybe it was he got injured, cut. He was just different, more mature. I don't know. But, like, this Niner team and, like, that the Rams team are really more like the old school Niners team. Remember, Seattle never shut up. And they backed it up. But, like, the Rams are not a fuck around group. Like, you think, like, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Whitworth, now they got Stafford. It's like they are pretty locked in. Like, really, their most gregarious guys are coach, And I think that works in the NFL. It really does. And most of the top teams, when you look around the last 4 or 5 years that have kind of been consistently near the top, have had guys that are just all football, all serious, just not screwing around, And when I say not screwing around, I don't mean like want to have some beers with their buddies. I just mean like football means, I don't know, like Tom Brady level everything, but like on the football scale, like close to a 10, like much closer to a 10 than like a 7. And that's why, for example, why I think people are kind of hard on Kyler. It's like, bro, you can't sustain in this league if you're not all. I watched a video the other day because I was trying to find something funny to make fun of Kyler. And I vividly remember, because I ended up on this caddy. He's not Max Homa's caddy, but he's someone's caddy. And I ended up on his Instagram page. And he doesn't Instagram that much. And like one of his Instagram videos was like, he's a big Charger fan. And he had this long post, and it was Phillip Rivers. Remember when that last game, and he ends up crying of like, I gave everything I had. And it was kind of, they knew he wasn't going to be back, and like he was crying. This guy's post was just like, it's hard being a Charger fan, but I can't express how much, the crazy part about sports is you root for someone, and it means as much to him as it does to you as a fan. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we didn't win a Super Bowl with Phillip, but it's like, I can't, not a Charger fan worth their salt would say, he didn't every single time. Again, flawed player, but like fucking give his heart, soul, blood, sweat, and give you all he had. That's really all I think sports fans can really ask for. And ideally, when that guy is doing it, is a top guy, is like a Peyton, is a Gronk, is an Aaron Donald, is a Bosa, like you're going to have some success. Hell, if you just get a guy that's like above average talent, which like a Phillip, a Matt Ryan, like you're going to be in pretty good shape. But when you get a good team, like high level talent, shit, you're going to win all the time. The only thing that can really derail you are injuries, because if your guys are healthy, you will not lose. Like here's what I know. If the Niners stay healthy with their core guys, even with a young quarterback, they're going to be good. It's unavoidable. Now, 13 wins, 11 wins, I don't know specifically, because a lot then would hinge on like, well, can Trey make a lot of third down passes? But they will not, they will be an 11-win team minimum. They're just too good, and their guys give a shit too much. And I think all their guys are like that. And obviously their coach is just a junkie.
I think part of it, going back to the Yankees, they had won 3. I think Jeter was saying this definitely after they'd won 2. Might have been after they'd won 3 World Series in a row. So his 4th. Whenever it was, he said,
I forgot that they won 3 straight.
Yeah. He said, we might make winning look easy, but winning's really, really, really hard. And I think when you talk about serious players, it's guys that understand that winning is really, really, really hard. And that the margins are really thin. And if anybody understands that, it's this group of Niners when you think about it, right? They've been to the Super Bowl, the margins this thin, they almost won and didn't. Last year, they were this close to not making the playoffs. Then they got into the playoffs. Then they go to the NFC Championship game, and they're one step away from the Super Bowl.
Had a lead, guy, second half.
Don't get it, right? So, like, this group understands how hard it is. And I think you get serious players when guys realize, is this the rep that is the difference 7 months from now? Is this the hour of film that's the difference between winning and losing week 3, and that one win is the difference between going to the playoffs and not? And I think that's probably part of what's really frustrating for Cardinals coaches and players around Kyler. It's like, we only have so many shots, and this guy doesn't understand how few opportunities there really are to really win, because you only get so many.
Well, I went to Sacramento to play golf with my brother over the weekend, and I spent the night at my mom's house, and I drove back Sunday morning. And I was just flipping channels, and on Sirius, they replay like Dan Patrick interviews on like I didn't even know NBC Sports had a radio. It's like 85. I think it's 85. That's really good. I listened to Dan Patrick just talking to people on the drive home. And one of the guys he was talking to, they must have been friends for like 30 years, because I had never really heard of him, but he covers the Arizona Cardinals. He's like a columnist. They love each other. And they were talking about Larry Fitzgerald. And Dan starts asking him, like, do you think Larry still has the itch? And he was talking about the last year for Larry, and kind of he wasn't trying to throw Kyler under the bus. This guy knows something. And can you imagine Larry Fitzgerald, who gave his heart and soul to a franchise that, let's face it, for the most part, someone DM'd me or texted me or tweeted me, the Cardinals have made the playoffs 6 times in like 35 years. Like, they've not been very good. And Larry's been at the peak of their moments, right? And you've given everything, and you're old, and then you're like, am I really going to just lay it on the line another year at 38 years old with this? Like, I did it with Carson, and I changed positions because Bruce is like, play slot instead of outside. It'll be the best for your career. Well, it's easy to do. You're like, Carson's all in, Honey Badger, Patrick Peterson. I'm in with a bunch of all-in guys. Calais Campbell. It's a bunch of me's. And then I see we're talented. Like, Larry's no dummy. He knows I got some talent, but it's like, I'm going to do it with this guy. I'm out. Like, does Larry quit if it's the Carson Palmer crew? Probably not.
If Justin Herbert's his quarterback?
No chance. And I think that matters. And it's why here's the one thing, we'll get into Trey later, but like I won't, and I don't know enough about him, but I know the way the Niners think about him. And here's what I do know. The Niners have a very good feel, and I think this starts with John and Kyle that have an innate feel for this, and Adam Peters, who learned from Belichick and was around Elway, and is a player himself at UCLA. I think they really understand like football character. They're really good at it. Is like, you bet on football character. And because that way, worst case, you're going to hit a floor. You may have some limitations that you never get a ceiling, which most guys, but unless your name's like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, you could argue never hit. Like, did Phillip Rivers truly hit his ceiling? Probably not. But his floor was, and Matt Ryan's a good example. He did 1 year, but their floors have been so high that you just sustain for so long. And just assume that like they nailed Trey Lance's football character, which everyone around the league signed off on and said like it's top notch. You just don't bet against that guy. Most guys fail in the NFL that have like Solomon Thomas failed because he doesn't have any moves. He's not that explosive, right? Like Cleveland Farrell is going to fail in the NFL. And when I say fail, like not live up to their billing, not because they don't try, not because they don't care. Like he's stiff. He's not explosive. Like Trey Lance, clearly big enough, the arm. If he cares enough, which they think he does, the league thought he does, it's good. It's impossible for him not to just be solid. It's just impossible. That's why, like, Bosa really cares. Well, he's got the league talent. It's one of the best players in the league. Debo, like, really, really cares. It's like someone tweeted at me when I was driving home, like, Aiyuk is Aiyuk the best wide receiver? It's like, no, Debo looked pretty fucking good. I saw it out there flying around. If this was a game, Debo would have scored a couple touchdowns. I promise you that.
I mean, Debo's skill set doesn't translate as well to flashing in practice.
Well, yeah,
because Aiyuk does.
No,
because Aiyuk goes down the field, right?
Yeah.
Aiyuk is their best downfield threat without question. We'll see Danny Gray, whatever.
But here's what we were talking about yesterday. Like, while they can't tackle, right? Debo breaks tackles. He probably would have broke half those tackles.
Well, Jimmy Ward just gave him like a light kind of tap. Not even a tap. I mean, I think in real life, if it happened to us, we'd end up on our side. And Debo did not break stride.
He's like a little bowling ball.
I mean, it's wild.
Muscle.
Donald, thank you, Donald, on the stream says greatness is in the details and the small thing. Great preparation equals great results. Yeah, you definitely don't get great results at a high level with half-assed preparation.
Well, and the only way to prepare at the NFL level, at the highest level, is like you got to be obsessed. It's not like the other sports. Baseball, you just play every day. In basketball, like so much of it is like obviously you work at it. Like the highest level guys are working their ass off. But when you play, it's like, I mean, Giannis, LeBron, these guys, Anthony Davis. I mean, it's like even Clay. Like he's a 6'7.5" human being. I mean, these are not. They are athletic outliers in the world. Like there are a lot of guys. You and I are standing next sideline. Like Jimmy Ward, Debo. Like they aren't the biggest human beings. Like, I mean, they're thick. They have muscles, but it's like it's their desire to work at their craft. Like football, of all the sports, does just entail the most work because you're constantly practicing and lifting and studying. Like that is the majority of the time. Think about it this. If you're Jimmy Ward, you get 17 games. Well, the majority of time you spent like all OTAs, all training camp, all week, film room, weight room, practice field. Like you actually don't play that much, right? Like the ratio, if you're an infielder, of infield practice to playing, if you're a full-time starting shortstop, is like you're way more playing the games than you are taking infield, right? Not even close. How long do they take infield on a given day? 20 minutes?
They don't take infield. They might go out there during BP and take some grounders, but there's no, rarely is there a team like infield. That's a college thing.
Okay, so when I see a guy taking grounders, he chose to go out there and get a little work.
Right? Yeah, or it might be part of the deal. Like you just take some grounders during batting
rotation.
Practice. Yeah. Lucas on the stream says, I replaced my after-workout smoothie with Tito's. Results haven't been what I wanted, so I quit working out and am focused on consuming more Tito's.
Good call. Great call.
John, there was a message here about where did this go?
I just think we spend so much time, in the draft, and this is the hardest part about doing what we do, because you just talk to one person in the NFL. They give you like 7 nuggets. You're like, God, if I knew that, I wouldn't have liked that guy. Or God, if I knew that, I would have started tweeting like, I think this guy's going to be a star. The amount of information that you have to have on the human being like think about the majority of time on the top, like 100 guys in a draft are spending talking about what's he like, how much does he like football, what's, I had a trainer DM me, like, how often do scouts talk to trainers? I'm like, that's one of their go-to people. Like, how do they act in the training room? How do they treat you? If they get hurt, how do they rehab? Like, all that stuff, like, you're going to get hurt. Whether that's just like a pinky toe bruise or whether it's a major injury. So you're going to spend time, like, training room's unavoidable. So all these things dictate how you get a good team, because ultimately your team is going to be just a lot of guys that better spend a lot of time working on football. The majority of human beings aren't just going to be, if your team's good, just be like, I do everything off talent. I don't even try that hard. Not saying that everyone works at the same level. Like, I bet if we even nitpick like the top 10 Niners, there'd be some guys that put more effort than others, Because what if I told, maybe Nick Bosa spends less time studying film and more time on himself in the weight room, something that just works for him. Like, we could nitpick, and I'm not saying that's the case, but.
Well, like Trent Williams, hard worker, right? Or like a prepared player. He made a comment the other day that Bosa's already sweating by the time I start my stretch.
Yeah, and
that doesn't mean that Trent Williams also doesn't work hard, right?
But I've been told by people that, like, Trent Williams is not a huge weight room guy, like, relative to Bosa and Kittle. And that's where they're at the highest level. It's like, well, I'm going to nitpick Trent Williams. Like, is strength an issue?
Right.
He's lucky enough to be God-given one of the great left tackle bodies, like, in the history of the league, right? Like, even I remember when we talked to Joe Staley. Joe's like, me compared to him, like, what are we talking about? And Joe was one of the greatest Niners offensive linemen in the history of the franchise. And he'd be the first to admit, like, yeah, this guy's on a different level than me. Joe went to like 5-6 Pro Bowls. So they're at the highest of high levels. There are like certain things that.
Well, it'll be interesting if Robert Kimdiche makes the team and or makes any impact for them, because, it's hard to know when you just watch a practice. But we've both watched him for a couple of days. He acts different than everybody else. He is out there talking a lot, interacting with the fans. I'm not going to say it's weird, but I definitely pick up some look at me vibes.
What stands out on a non-look at me team, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if he's a fit for them from a personality standpoint, because I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's authentic and he's just happy to be there. He's thrilled that he's got a chance and he's happy to see the fans. But, it's odd. He's an outlier in that way, and I don't know if he fits with them. But maybe, this is Chris Kasarik this is what he does. And they've got high-level guys on that team. If he doesn't make it with them, I don't know how he's going to make it. Now, they are deep, which is the one thing that works against him.
I would say he's kind of taken the loudest guy previously was 99 Javon Kinlaw, who we haven't seen much of because, after an off day, got a scheduled rest day, which, a little unique, but, we got to keep this guy healthy. He has been,
but then he jumped in a little.
I would say he's been tame relative to, it feels like he's kind of mellowed out a little bit. Maybe they've told him, like, let's just stay focused on your role instead of trying to do whatever you've been doing. Because it felt he was a little Kimdiche-ish for the first couple years. Didn't you agree? Little different.
Yes, I think it was different. I think it was less look at me and more just kind of maybe riding a little bit of an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. You're right. Kimdiche is. But here's why Kimdiche could get away with it probably more than 90% of people in his shoes. He does physically look like a high-level NFL player just standing there, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen this yet. Somebody mentioned this in the chat before we get to something else from the Niners.
Pornbot.
Keenan Allen. Whoop, that's not going to work. Never mind. I guess Keenan Allen, there's a video of him walking
making fun of.
Yeah. I had the video loaded, but Broncos country, let's ride. Keenan was saying a lot of that.
He kept saying Chargers fam. He said
Chargers
Bolt
fam. Bolt fam.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I thought it was in jest. He was fucking around.
You don't think he was taking a little shot?
Well, he is because like every human took shots, but he was he wasn't like being malicious with it.
No. Just having a good time. Speaking of having a good time, John, how about Jimmy Garoppolo off on the sideline looking good? Jimmy, so people who aren't there are 2 practice fields. There's bleachers. Then there's a third kind of smaller practice field where like the specialists spend some time. That practice field, which is the closest one to the Niners facility, the fans have their backs turned to it, but they can turn. And so when we showed up, when we were allowed out to Niner practice, we could turn and watch Jimmy Garoppolo, probably with, I don't know, 30 yards between fields away from Trey Lance, just working out. I throwing the ball, getting the sweat in, John, getting loose, and waiting for his time. You said it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen at an NFL camp.
Let me rephrase it. It's the most normal, bizarre, weird thing I've ever seen. Because it doesn't feel like there's no contention. There's no weirdness on the camps, right? There's no like, Jimmy's like, fuck you. And Kyle's like, go home. It's not,
There's
it
no
could be
anxiety
infinitely
there,
weird.
right?
Yeah.
There's no anxiety actually there.
But like
different like Sean walking around, that's weird at Texas.
100%. But like the coaches are passing him, talking to him. Mike Shanahan's coming, tapping him on the ass, bullshitting with him.
Mike Shanahan is bullshitting with Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's the most normal, bizarre, batshit thing I've ever seen. Mayoko, Cam Inman, these guys have been around the league, all agreed this is unprecedented. Yet, I do agree that like it's normal if Jimmy wants to make it normal, and he's making it normal. Like it's not. It shouldn't be normal. It wouldn't be normal anywhere else. Guy, if this was happening in Philadelphia, in Dallas, it would be a zoo. But I think everyone's so numb to it. Jimmy's cool with it. It kind of works watching it. I put my scout eye on for just a quick, like 2 minutes when he just threw a couple. I was like, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's better than 15 might be strong, but minimum 8 to 12 starting quarterbacks right now. Like he looked healthy. He threw a couple deep balls. I mean, he can throw it. Remember, rap sheet, like 40 yards. He can throw it 40 yards. He's looking like normal Jimmy Garoppolo, tan on point, sweating, good shape. It was trainers, but they had the vibe of like, the Garoppolo brothers, a little smaller, but they were all out there catching. Jimmy did a couple of these, like, he's like setting them up. And it's just, this is a quarter. What team guy right now in the National Football League has a guy who is a legitimate NFL starter? No one argues that. He's a lock to be a starter in 2023 when he can just free agency starts and he just pick a team. Just on their team who is kind of available for trade, and they will eventually cut just around, but not practicing. But yet, in a weird way, and we mentioned this, if Trey were to break his leg, he would enter practice the next day. It's crazy. I mean, it really, but it's not. That's what's so wild about
He's
it.
gone, but then if something crazy happened, he'd be right back in a heartbeat like that. If the worst possible scenario happened for the 49ers.
What about high ankle sprain? Trey might miss like 2 games.
I think he's gone.
High ankle sprain, a month minimum.
Then they try to get Jimmy to take a pay cut.
What do you think about this? Someone brought this to my attention as a theory, and I was like, watch it today. Maybe I'm wrong. Could they go to him and say, hey, $8 million base salary, we will give you if he gets hurt in every game you start, we give you a 1.2 bonus, right? So if you start 10 games, all of a sudden you're at $20 million. Is that on the table? Because after leaving today, I was like, shit, if you told me that he's just their backup quarterback, I mean, look at their backup quarterbacks. I mean, he would 1,000,000% be the best backup quarterback by a wide margin in the NFL immediately.
Well, I mean,
do you think Kyle is open to bringing him back as a backup quarterback?
Yeah, but see, unlike right now where they can just keep him on the side and on their team, they're in total control. They're not in total control of bringing him back as a backup. I mean, they are if they wanted to pay him,
I just
$27 million, right? If they want to pay him $27 million, then they can just make him their backup and he can't do anything about it.
You think he'd do that?
For $27 million, I think that he would do. But they don't want to do that.
Would you contemplate doing that?
Yes, absolutely. Because to your credit, you made the point today, like, Well, does he want to go play for the? Does he really want to play for the Seahawks? Or the
Everyone
Titans?
keeps saying he's going to go to Seattle. What world does Jimmy Garoppolo, who comes from Belichick and now Kyle and won a bunch of playoff games, want to risk one of the worst teams in the NFL?
So, well,
And his best wide receiver is a deep threat. Jimmy Kidd doesn't throw deep.
Well, he could throw deep to DK. Just
Why?
throw it
Because
off.
DK. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that would work a little better. But is his stock higher if he's played a season with the Seahawks or been the Niners backup in next year's offseason?
Niners backup
Right.
100%.
But he's not going to be the Niners backup for $8 million. At that point, he'd be like, no. You just release me. I'll sit on my own.
But he's not a lock to get. He's not a lock to get $8 million at September 1st.
No,
right?
but he's rich. Like, I think he just wants to be a starting quarterback. So if I were Jimmy,
Are we sure after witnessing today
that he's rich or that he wants to be a starting
that he
quarterback?
wants to be a starter? That he's just kind of cool, just going with the flow.
I mean, I think he is going with this situation, but I watched a guy last year who competed his ass off, and I think
I'm not saying that he doesn't want to play football.
I'm saying he
but
wants to be a starting quarterback.
Would Matt Ryan do this?
Just wait, you mean?
I'm saying, like, let's just say Matt Ryan had been in the situation. Would Matt Ryan be on the side of Falcons practice doing this? I think we all agree it probably wouldn't happen to a guy of that stature, right? I'm not saying Jimmy's
again, like we talked about this, it may be that come next Monday or next Wednesday that maybe there's an internal drop dead date with them. Like, we will release you if we don't have something done with you by day X. Because you and I are basic.
I felt pretty normal today watching everyone just kind of, hey, Jimmy, Jimmy.
But I think Kyle Shanahan would have to acknowledge that is not the ideal situation for Trey Lance to have Jimmy Garoppolo around as his backup quarterback.
It's 100%.
It is the greatest protection for the team in theory if you are getting it. The thing is, this is so hard to measure. Like we're talking about Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. No one debates. Even Jeter said in the doc, Alex's numbers are so much. I can't win a debate about numbers.
He said, I'm not blind.
But he does have the rings. And even that sometimes feels like a cop-out. But the one thing I thought watching Jeter makes these plays, Jeter threw a runner out at home in game 1 of the World Series against the Mets. And it's just a play that I wondered, like, A-Rod's made some great plays, but would A-Rod have made that play? It's really impossible to measure. It's clear that you are safer if Jimmy Garoppolo is your backup and Trey Lance is your starting quarterback if Trey Lance should get hurt. What's hard to measure is, well, what does it take away from Trey Lance's ability to be your starting quarterback if you've got this sort of safety net behind him who also happens to be a guy who's been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game? And I think even Kyle would acknowledge, yeah, it'd be nice having a really good backup around, but that's not what's best for Trey Lance.
You think Kyle was okay going to be Nate Sudfeld to be his backup week 1? Do you think he's just reserved to that? Kind of feels that way. I haven't really thought that much about it.
Other option is get Jimmy to be his backup quarterback.
Yeah, or,
sign somebody?
Sign a guy that gets I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're a betting man right now, you'd say Nate Sudfeld's the backup.
Well, who are they going to – I don't think he's okay with it necessarily, but, I mean, I think he does fit the bill of the types of quarterbacks Kyle has won with before. Trey Lance is the guy that's – Trey Lance is different than anybody Kyle's coached since Washington, right?
Yeah, he's had a lot of guys that can't move and not great arms.
So, I mean, it's debatable that to say keeping Jimmy could best protect the team. I think it's not what's best for Trey. My point on Jimmy is if you're Garoppolo, wouldn't you rather get cut and wait on your own to see if somebody needs you week 3, let's say, than be their backup for $8 million? Even if you may not get $8 million somewhere else, at some point, the price of just you're willing to give something up to control your own destiny. And remember, Jimmy was sitting on the bench when the Niners traded for him.
It's a long time ago, though, now.
I'm just saying he has the experience of joining a team mid-year and immediately making a positive impact, stepping right in and being able to play.
5-game win streak.
Like, I wonder if Jimmy is not afraid of that.
I heard someone say the other day, and I remember thinking it was insane, but I actually believe I was wrong, questioning. Do you remember when Jimmy arrived, people are like, they're not dead set on extending him. they are prepared potentially to franchise and trade him and still get Kirk Cousins. And remember, we were like, what are they talking about? Looking back, I actually think that was true. I think when they did the trade, let's just do the trade, figure it out.
Fell in our
like,
lap.
right, he fell in our lap, get a trial period, but we know for a fact we still want Kirk Cousins and we can trade him. But then he won those 5 games. And they're like, shit, we might as well, instead of paying $25 million more for Cousins, just keep this guy. The difference might, even if Cousins we think is a little better, like we'll just take Jimmy. I actually believe that. Because remember that tweet? Everyone's like, what? They're going to franchise and trade Jimmy and still go after Cousins? That's insane. I actually think that was true.
If there were no Prague or no John Lynch, Kyle might have still done it. Who knows?
The 5-game win streak, there was a lot of momentum for keeping the little hot shot.
And they ended up signing him to a contract that made sense for the team. They ended up going to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship. I think they made the right decision. Like with Kirk Cousins, what it turned out with Jimmy is eventually you need to find a better quarterback if you're really trying to take the next step.
Do you think if you gave Kyle over a couple Titos and said, hey, I got a button for you, you can go back to the 2018 offseason when you had to decide on Jimmy and Kirk Cousins, would he, if he could do a do-over, would he have signed Kirk Cousins and franchise and traded Jimmy?
I wonder if he thinks, Kirk Cousins hits Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl, but remember, they beat
more
Kirk
durable.
Cousins. They beat Kirk Cousins.
Pounded his ass.
He probably does. I don't know. I mean, that's a great question.
He got edgy about that last year, remember?
I bet he does it. Kirk Cousins has put up some huge numbers.
I think he does. Yeah. And he's been durable. I think one thing he'd say about Jimmy is like, I could live with Jimmy if he played 16 straight games, 5 straight years, but that just wasn't the case, right? The ACL, then the COVID year when he missed a bunch of games. Part of Jimmy's problem has been, ironically, is he's rehabbing right now, has just been durability. Like if Jimmy had just been healthy the whole time, I think we'd view him as a flawed player, but he'd be viewed a lot better. He disappears a lot, like just being legitimately hurt. Like he's just like,
it's true. But I do think, and they've stopped telling what I believe is a lie, this lie, which is if Jimmy weren't hurt. Remember, there was like that, Jimmy wasn't available, so it was time to move on to try and find Trey. It's like, no, Jimmy had proven to not be at the level of the guys that win the Super Bowls, and we needed to upgrade a quarterback.
The only thing I'd push back on that is if Jimmy, the year that he missed 10 games, let's just say he plays all 16. What if they win 10? They could just go back to the playoffs. And so they've gone Super Bowl, back to the playoffs. It would have been much harder. They went from 12, remember, to 3. It just would have been. Remember how poor their quarterback play was?
Yeah, I do. But I also think
I'm not disputing that they wouldn't have constantly be looking, but it would have been harder for them. It's harder to. This is why people winning, going 9-7 every year doesn't help you out getting a quarterback, right? So like the Eagles, you're going to find out if Jalen's the guy. Well, what if they go 10-7 again? It's like, well, we don't. Our team's good. We don't really love him. Well, how do you get up?
I think every offseason, it's easy to forget how dissatisfied at times Kyle Shanahan looks with Jimmy Garoppolo on the sideline during the season. How many frustrating moments there are. I think he knew it was time to move on, injuries or no injuries.
You're going to have a couple this year. It'll be interesting if it'll be frustration or just like ready for the Rapids. It's one thing part of Jimmy is like, Jimmy, you're 7th-year pro. What are we doing? And there's another thing of like, he threw a pick, like he's young.
Also, and we can talk about this with Trey, there's going to be a flip side to the bad plays that you didn't have with Garoppolo, right? Part of the thing with Garoppolo is that he plays like Favre sometimes, but without leading the league in touchdowns.
And never throws sweet, deep touchdowns.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that is, we could talk about Trey Lance here.
He was doing it today, guy. He does that rollout drill. It's like, Jimmy, I don't think you need to practice the rollout drill where you throw it on the run to your right. Like I would, my drill, Jimmy, if you got to roll out, throw it away. Just throw it, like golf where they just hit the grandstands, just throw it into the grandstands. We don't need the rollout drill on the move. That's a pick.
What fun is that, John?
Yeah, I know, but that's a drill I'd scrap.
Let's talk about Trey Lance because we talked about him a lot on after Monday's practice. Red zone was what really stood out there. No red zone for the 49ers in 11-on-11 Tuesday practice. And I think some of what we saw is what the upside of Trey Lance will be at practice today. Several downfield throws, one-on-ones, more so than in 11-on-11. He hit in 11-on-11 George Kittle on a nice sliding catch kind of over the middle by the right hash where he had to really step up and throw the ball hard. He hit down the field throws, 45 air yards, a 65-yard touchdown to Brandon Aiyuk. Again, one-on-ones against Jimmy Ward. Should have had a touchdown to the other side to Juwan Jennings, who dropped the ball at the 15. Had a 60-yard, probably 40, 45 air yards down the right sideline. And a one-handed catch to Malik Turner. It was a very nice play, one of their receivers, and he ended up running it into the end zone. Again, these are one-on-ones. But, the Niners outside the hash marks and down the field is a no-fly zone in the Niners offense the last several years. It just didn't happen, right? More than 20-plus yards down the field didn't happen. Certainly 40-yard throws down the field did not happen. I think Jimmy had the second fewest attempts, 20 yards or more down the field in the NFL last year. Only Daniel Jones had fewer. And basically half of his throws come within, I think, 15 yards of the line of scrimmage between the hash marks.
Who, James G?
James G. So this is what's different. This is, you're going to give some stuff up, some experience. But I was thinking about it today. On the checklist of things that Kyle Shanahan wants out of Trey Lance when he made the switch, where he wants to be better than he was, red zone is not high on that list. Red zone, Kyle can handle red zone, but it's some of the stuff we saw down the field of practice today that's why he did what he did.
Do you think if Jimmy Garoppolo was under contract for the next several years and Trey Lance was on some other team and they were just humming along with Jimmy as their starting quarterback, they draft Danny Gray high in the third round? Probably doesn't.
Jimmy Garoppolo as his quarterback wouldn't make as much sense.
No. Why did the Chiefs start drafting different type players once they got Patrick Mahomes? They have much more speed on the outside with Danny Gray. Ayuk's been around, but let's face it, Aiyuk was a little underutilized, I think some people would say, with his ability to stretch the field. So yesterday, hard on him. It was a tough day in the red zone for the offense. And when it's a tough day for the offense in a practice, like I can't really judge the practice script. So I can't crush the play caller. We go to the quarterback. And whether it's all his fault or not, talking to Dante Whitner, who was on the other side in the red zone, the first thing he says is, in the red zone as a quarterback, your speed of going through your progressions has to amplify threefold because the timing, it's way faster. It just happens faster. Well, and I said this yesterday, at the 50-yard line, you got a little more time, especially when he's just running Andy Reid's favorite play, all go special. Now, the Niners, not in a million years, unless they're down in the Super Bowl or a last second game, are running all go special. They can run multiple go routes right now and let Trey, whoever you like, whatever matchup you like, let it rip. And he's going to hit some of those. And that's what Danny Gray can fly. Aiyuk can fly. Debo can run that pass. You could do it to him. Kittle, hell, just on a basically down the seam go route. I guess Jimmy could kind of hit, but it feels like most of even Kittle's action was ins and outs and just shit kind of sitting in zones. And then he made the rest happen. That can counterbalance. Part of learning the red zone, it takes years to figure it out, be comfortable with it. I'm fine with that. That's part of drafting a guy big picture. But right away, you should be able to utilize the arm. Go back to once upon a time with Kaepernick. One thing that immediately changed, and this is part of having Alex Smith, who kind of fits the Jimmy mold, and it happened with Cap, and then it obviously happened on a much higher level with Mahomes, is the explosive passing game. When you really look back at the Niners, Kaepernick's number, he wasn't picking you apart. It was he was 32 of 38. No, it was always games 12 of 19. But sometimes he would throw for 250 yards because he hit two plays of 60 yards a pop, which are the Niners, their only 60-yard plays have been runs or a play where Debo breaks 7 tackles. When you can just hit the go route, imagine being in a tie game, third quarter, 2 minutes left in third quarter, and it's like, this thing is going down to the wire. Niners are at their own 30, it's 3rd and 8. All of a sudden, they hit a 50-yard play, flips it. A couple plays later, they score, they end up winning by 14. That wasn't like, let's face it, under Jimmy Garoppolo, if they didn't hit a big run or a unreal screen pass from Debo, their scores were methodical. It took them time. They were not a quick score offense. And the way you quick score on offense, Josh Allen has this, Herbert has this, obviously Mahomes. And I'm not saying he's those guys by any means, but he does have the ability to just throw a 50-yard bomb, right? And they got some guys you can just throw 50-yard bombs to. And that is a curveball that Kyle has not been, they just didn't even call that play. And rightfully so. There was the point in calling the play. It was just not, it wasn't in the arsenal. It's like, why don't you throw a slider? I don't know how. Like, why don't you throw a go route? Because it ain't going to work. So why even waste time?
Yeah, the 14-play drives with 11 runs is fun, but sometimes you need to be able to score fast.
Well, it's sweet. Like the first series of the game against the Cowboys, like, we're going to fuck you up. It's another
or when
thing
you have,
like,
or when you've got a 10-score lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. What about like
when you're down 7? Yes.
7 minutes left. You're down 10. You're like, well, we gotta pick up the pace here, guys. We gotta score twice.
Yeah. Somebody DM'd us, or maybe it was somebody made a comment on one of our YouTubes the other day. They were like, you guys talk about how much Kyle Shanahan loves just running the rock. Don't forget, I mean, when he had Matt Ryan, he loved throwing the football too. Matt Ryan led the league in air yards per attempt back in 2016 at over 10 yards.
Julio.
And it's true, right? Like, Kyle does love running the rock, but he also likes throwing the ball down the field more than he has with Jimmy Garoppolo. There is more of a balance that he would like, because at the end of the day, Kyle does like style. He loves substance and he loves pounding it at you. But Kyle also loves to, tell John Lynch and be like, watch this. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be open down the middle of the field and hit it. And, the Niners, that is an element that they just didn't have. And I think it's a part. I think Brandon Aiyuk might benefit the most from anybody this year with the addition of Trey, because that's not really Debo. Juwan Jennings is not separating down the field, really. That's maybe Danny Gray. We can talk about that. And that's also Aiyuk, but it's primarily Aiyuk.
Yeah, I would expect them to try to establish some deep passing games, which they did a couple times last year. Remember Houston, some play action, deep bombs. Like, that is just going to be an element of the offense that is going to get implemented, I think, early and often. Because it's an area where you can scheme a shot. I remember when I was with Andy and Michael Vick, like they would scheme him several shots. Now, it's not a high completion, right? It's not a 70% like on an out route. I heard someone say the other day, was Steve Young? It was some former quarterback. I mean, a high-level guy that's like, I think we need to throw completion percentage a little out the window. Like, what does that even mean anymore? Like, basically, like, everyone hyping up, like, he's a 68% passer. Well, yeah, it's fucking guys are wide open. A lot of your passes are screens and quick routes. Like,
but I mean, relative to is he saying like historically or just relative to because I would say relative to who?
Yeah, this is
who
like
else is playing the sport today.
Yeah, it's not that relatable. The history of the sport, it's just so much different. I'm kind of butchering exactly his point, but ultimately what I'm saying, it's obviously easier to complete a higher percentage now, but a deep pass is still a deep pass. It's always going to be the hardest pass, right? It really is. It's probably closer to like 35-40% than it is even 50 if you're a 65% passer, just because there's more room for error. You have several defenders down there. It's why, you just sit and watch football for 17 weeks, college and pro. It's a lot of quarterbacks do just miss wide open guys deep down the field, let alone contested. Like, it is a difficult pass, but it's why you got to rep it a lot in practice. And, you need a combination of either height guys that can go high point balls, the Niners don't really have, or speed guys and strong arm quarterbacks, which I do think the Niners fall into that category.
I would say Aiyuk is showing an ability to play bigger than he is.
Yeah. They have guys with great ball skills, but part of like when you have great ball skills and you're DK Metcalf or AJ Brown, you just give a huge radius, right? It's like throwing an alley-oop to a center. Like, you throw an alley-oop to John Morant, like the margin's a little different than throwing one to Anthony Davis. Like, I remember when AJ Brown like single-handedly beat the 49ers. It's like, you could throw this ball to anywhere. This guy, it looks like he's 6'6". Remember how big he looked? Just like in that game, it was like, Jesus, this guy. and following the Eagles pretty closely, it's like the Niners just don't have that guy, but they do have very, very highly skilled, smaller players. They're the two best wide receivers, right? And when I say smaller, relative to, some of the bigger wide receivers in the league, they're good too. Aiyuk's a little bigger than you think when you get closer to him.
Yeah.
I always notice that.
I did get this DM today. I thought we could address it. This is from Derek. He says, huge fan of the show. What do you guys think Trey's ceiling is this year? His overall game reminds me of Watson's. I think 25 touchdowns and 10 picks would be a win for him this year. Go Niners. From Peoria, Illinois, Derek. 25 touchdowns, 10 picks. Would you take that?
Yes.
I think you'll also get a handful of rushing touchdowns. And I think they will create. Think about it this way. I was thinking about it this way today. There are two areas of stress the Niners offense can put on the let me try this again. There are two areas of stress the Niners offense can put on a defense that they did not do it last year. Downfield throws and the quarterback run, right?
Yeah.
There was an added element for them.
Are you going to take over under like 19.5 touchdown passes?
I take over. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like to me in the 21 to 20. I think we predicted this probably. To me, like the 21 to 24 range would feel like a successful year. How many did Jimmy throw last year?
24, I think.
So
also missed games.
20.
Missed a couple games.
Plus what would Trey have had? Like 4?
He threw one to Debo. 4.
5.
Threw a couple to Debo.
25 passing touchdowns from Niners.
Okay, yeah.
5 and 2. 5 and 2.
Feels like we got some spammers in the chat.
Well, so here's the deal. Like, if you ask, this is talking to the YouTubers. If you ask us a question, what we have here is I star questions on the side. If you ask us a question while we're in the middle of another topic, because what we do is we cut up these topics. This is a
podcast. There's not.
It's a podcast, and then the videos that if we're doing a specific topic, those videos get cut up. So if you ask us a question that's not on the topic of the video we're doing, and it's a question worth addressing, or if you paid for it, there's a place I can star it, and we can get back to it later. We have never not gotten back to a question that got starred. Definitely if somebody pays for it, but you don't have to. There are plenty of questions we answer that no one gave us any money for, which is fine. But if you ask us a question in the middle of a discussion that is off topic, we get back to it. Like, for example, I've got one here that wasn't on topic, didn't have a chance to get to it until now, or I got to it earlier. Somebody gave us some money for Tito's. Somebody asked us about Tito's. Well, 8 minutes before that, Jay gave us $10 to ask us a question about the O-line. Jay's been waiting longer than this guy. Jay's not complaining. Jay's waiting his turn. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. And we'll get back to Jay. So somebody asked about Tito's, and squeaky oil gets the wheel, all that kind of thing. So we can get back to it. But that's our situation. If we're in the middle of one discussion and the comment doesn't factor into that topic, we'll get back to it, because then when we cut the video up into 10 minutes, it screws up the whole thing. Why are you laughing?
Oh, wrong one.
Draft player that went to Coachella. Is that this weekend?
This is a hell of a question.
I paid you money, now dance.
I don't think it's this.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification. So you just fly off the handle acting like a crazy person until somebody directly. You're like Britt McHenry at a DMV. No, not a DMV day.
No, it was a DMV. It was a tow yard. In fairness to Britt, I will say this. If I would have been remotely worth videoing, my experience at the tow yard wouldn't have been.
When did you have a tow yard experience?
When we were at a radio show, my car was towed. Cost me $500.
I remember that.
I thought my car got stolen. I mean, I lost it. It was. I get the heebie-jeebies even thinking about fucking parking down there again.
Okay, so the question was, why did Tito's drop y'all and just got them back?
We have a deal with them for the football season, and then we had another deal with them for the football season. So we signed a 6-month deal last year, signed another 6-month deal this year.
Okay, we're happy to answer any question.
Yeah.
I think we've in our years here taken everything head on. Is everybody satisfied?
Yeah, I mean, guy got caught drinking tequila. They dropped us. We
got suspended like Stephen Ross, 6 months.
We had to prove that all we were drinking were Tito's.
Well, we had to do a loyalty thing.
Yeah, I said, no problem.
I get pee tested, and they don't want to see any water.
No, I just want to see yellow urine with Tito's.
Okay, Niners rookies. We were talking, is it the first 3? Maybe it's the first 4. Drake Jackson, Ty Davis-Price, Danny Gray. And I would even add Spencer Burford, the 4th-round pick from UTSA. Last 2 days, all 4 of them have shown up in their own ways.
What numbers, Buford?
Burford.
Burford? Oh, Burford.
Oh, actually, I wrote Buford. 74.
74. He's been repping at guard.
Burford. Burford. So, no, when we watched him Monday, the first 11-on-11 play they ran, he was the starting right guard.
As a former O-lineman,
he was at right guard as well.
As a former O-lineman, I tend to gravitate to the skill guys, and 71 kind of, but he doesn't really try that much, so I don't spend much. I'm not a huge, again, former O-lineman. I gravitate toward the edges.
Yeah.
Perimeter.
At one point today at practice, I was on the second field, and it changed to specialist drills.
Yeah. And
I was the only media member on that side of the field, and somebody came up to me. They're like, "Oh, big specialist guy, huh?" And I was like, honestly, they ran over there, and I was DMing somebody. I just got stuck here. So no, I'm not. I didn't mean to. But anyway, Niners draft picks, right? Those first 4 guys all look like they're going to have a role on this team pretty early.
Yeah, I think that the draft class has a chance to be pretty good. I think, and I was spent some time thinking about this guy. You know, you, me, those of us that live on the West Coast that just have probably watched more USC than they've deserved over the years. I mean, last year was a joke. I mean, really an all-time embarrassment. I mean, I would imagine people like that have been following the program for 30, 40 years. It's got to be one of the worst years in the history of the program, right? Last year at USC. I mean, coach got fired after a couple
years.
They
had some, before Pete, they had some pretty lean years, but that was
definitely the worst year of the last 20 years. And Drake Jackson, there was a contingent of people thought going into his junior season he had a chance to be like a top 15, top 20 pick. Top defensive linemen just don't fall. Yet the weight stuff, we talked about this yesterday, he fell. To me, it's insane that he fell at the end of the second round. But he got caught in the tsunami that was the negativity around the program. Price is a good example of he's really good. He was also in kind of a weird spot, right? LSU the last couple of years have been a disaster. Now, he's a running back, so his ceiling, unless you're like Saquon Barkley, is only so like you're going in the second or the third round. And Danny Gray, I mean, I think those 3 guys, there was a play today where Price ran so hard that he ran into this wide receiver blocking for him that the wide receiver got elevated, hit the ground, and you could tell, felt like he got hit by a Mack truck. Absolutely ruined him. And this guy's got to be thinking, all I'm told is, like, you got to block.
Mack.
You got to block for Kyle. You got to block. And I'm blocking my ass off. And then the running back just fucking destroys me. And then Danny Gray's making plays down the field. Now we'll see. To me, the thing with Burford is clearly he's in the mix. Like, it's hard to say a lock, but 4th round pick, like he's going to lock to probably make the team at minimum to be like a guard center swing guy. Once the preseason, like he's going to have a chance to win the starting position. And if you get a starter at guard or center in the 4th round, like that's a good pick. But like the other 3 guys aren't just making the team. Drake Jackson is going to play a lot. Drake Jackson is going to sack the quarterback this year. I don't know how many plays this guy will, or how many carries this guy will get, but I would lean more than you think. Price is scoring touchdowns this year. Now that could be 2, that could be 8, depending on injuries and Mitchell's health. And, if Trey Sermon comes on or Jeff Wilson, like there are other factors that are somewhat out of his control, but he's playing. And when
let me just correct me. Austin Mack was the wide receiver.
Austin Mack killed him. I mean, destroyed. And Danny Gray, not only is he making the team, like he has a unique skill, and his skill matches up now with the quarterback that he can stretch the field. And remember, you and I were talking to John Lynch during OTAs, like they thought he was just a good wide receiver, like a very skilled player in the open field, can make guys miss. A couple plays a day, you just see his speed, like he's got talent. And like I would say, again, very early. And the one thing that I learned back when I worked in the league, and I've carried this with me today, is like you can't young guys overreact to the first week or the first 2 weeks because you get used to the other guy's moves. And I think Trent Williams said yesterday, and this isn't necessarily what I'm talking about, but like, we're going up against defense that's really talented, that knows all our shit. So it's like they know all of our plays. And I do think that reflects young guys. Like, why can young guys look good? Because after a while, like Danny Gray knows exactly Lenore's moves and he knows how to beat him. Well, what happens? The preseason game, they don't look as good. I'm not saying they will, but that's just, there are all these steps as a young player where like Trent's going to be fine, Bosa's going to be fine, Fred's going to be fine. That's what you never know. The one thing I feel 100% certain on is the two guys. Like Danny Gray, we'll see when he gets against real corners, physicality. SMU, you wouldn't say they're play the most physical teams. I know Price does, play in the SEC. Everyone in the league thought he was like the hardest runner in the country. Like that guy's physical. That's going to translate. And Drake Jackson, ultimately, I don't know how many plays a game right now he's getting, but if he just gets 8 to 10 pass rushes, he's got fucking pass rush talent. He had a play today in one-on-ones. He's got an inside move. He's clearly got the ability to bend. He's explosive. We know that the D-line coach, like those two guys, that's working. The O-lineman, we'll see. I mean, it's just he's going to get live reps in preseason games against the Vikings. Like he's going to have to earn his spot. And Danny Gray, it's like, well, how does he handle press coverage? How does he handle not knowing the coverage? Like there's bigger steps. Like I know for a fact, Price, outside zone, hit that shit. He's going to be fine.
He
and Drake
runs
Jackson,
like
a Kyle Shanahan guy.
Like Elijah Mitchell. It happens
Right.
fast. It happens hard. And in these practices, not a lot of things. When something physical happens in space, it stands out because not a lot of things really physical happen in space in a practice. Fred Warner hitting somebody, that stands out.
The Jimmy Ward, Debo kind of collision, right?
Yep. Ty Davis Price. I think the two plays we saw today.
Is there
Danny
a chance
Gray.
Mack? What are the chances Mack has a pretty big bruise on his back? High. He got crushed
as he's trying to block, man. And I think it shows. Ty Davis Price is a through, not around guy, which is what Kyle Shanahan wants. He wants you going through. Yeah. Danny Gray had 2 catches back-to-back, well, not back-to-back, almost back-to-back. One in which he had a 5-yard gap between him and Ambry Thomas. He beat Ambry Thomas, caught it. Another right in front of us where Ambry was on him. Nate Sudfeld threw it this time, little underthrown. Danny had to kind of come back in the air for it. So Ambry's right there. You could take positive or negative. Like Ambry had a chance to make a play on the ball, which has been one of the things with Ambry Thomas, right? Is being there but not breaking the play up.
Biggest pick of the season.
But remember, underthrown. Remember Danny Gray, what were one of the things with him coming out?
Drops.
Hands. Well, he goes up, and Ambry, I thought, played it pretty well. Danny Gray made the play on a contested catch. So I think you're right. It's not going to be about volume for him. He is a spice. The stake on this Niners offense is Aiyuk and Debo and the run game and Trey Lance.
Kittle.
But Danny Gray is he's a little rosemary maybe this year. He's a little spice. He gives them a little something different, which they can take advantage of. And the question with him is, I think, or the key with him is he's not going to get 5 targets a game, right? So when Kyle draws it up for him, is he going to make the play? And I thought today in some chances to make plays, he made plays. He's going to get a few opportunities.
Yeah, and he's not a lock. Like if you told me he's obviously going to be on the 53-man roster, but like in sweats week 1, believable. But there are going to be games. It might happen week 1. It might be week 6 where he's going to be active. And it might be because of injuries that he's going to get some scheme plays. It's on him and Trey to hit him, right? I mean, the pass got to be there. And if it's there, he's got to come down with it. Because more than likely, if the coach is scheming it up, it's going to have a chance to hit, right? We've seen that. Because it's going to be a specific play. Might be a play action with him kind of beeline on the back, just going 80 miles an hour down the backside. Which like you said, to me, the second catch, with the contested one with Ambry in his face, I love when a wide receiver kind of high points and has to because the guy's like pin it against his body or his helmet. Like that takes a lot of concentration because you're like in midair and he's right in front of you. And then I couldn't tell like against his chest or his helmet, but like that's that's a concentration catch. You know, the ones are you either got good hands or you don't. If it's going to hit you in the hands, right? The ones where you got to high point it with a guy in your face, like that's the NFL. You know, that's that to me, that's even the biggest difference. Like, doesn't happen that much in college. Like a lot of catches in the NFL and PBUs are like right there. That's a play that happens once every other series in the league, right? It's like, damn, what a catch, right?
Yeah.
Or, damn, what a play by the DB. But it's like it could go either way. And it's like the best wide receivers or just functional a lot of wide receivers, guys that play in the NFL have a good chance to bring that down. Just like, honestly, they have the advantage over the DB. Like, I think if you just watch the league, like most DBs aren't, like PBUs are kind of outlier. It's usually because of a bad throw more than like, boom, banged it. Nope. Like that ain't happening.
But you still bad throw. You still do the nope.
Oh, well, yeah. If it
Either
would have
way.
hit his head, Ambry would have been like, I got it.
I was
You
right
know?
there. Gavin asks, what's the running back depth chart going to look like this year for the Niners? You know, we were talking about this today with our buddy John Dickinson because you got Elijah Mitchell, you got Ty Davis-Price.
Well, Mitchell's a starter, right?
Yep. Jeff Wilson Jr.
I would say he would be the 2 just based on seniority, resume. Pretty good. He's a good player. I mean, is he a 2? You know, I liked him as a lot of 3, but I just think it's part of being an old school coach. You just give a rookie, make him the number 2 right away. You know,
Didn't take long for Elijah Mitchell, but
Kyle will pivot fast. Yeah, all you got to do is run a couple hard. He's like, he'll just give you carries.
there's always some spots for JaMychal Hasty and the Trey Sermon.
I thought Sermon had a couple moments. I had a couple bad angles, but it looked like he was running hard. To me, Sermon, I guess we'll get into this. It's kind of crazy. They have a preseason game like next Friday. I would say he would be one of the guys that leading up to that game we'll be talking about. Like, it's a pretty big moment for him to like, okay, Trey Sermon's making plays. Right? Because is it inconceivable that it's like, listen, he just doesn't fit. We'll just cut him. Maybe they put him on the practice squad or what. I don't think he's a lock to make the team. And I think they're so good, they're not worried about like, wait, you just third round, like whatever. Like they're not going to be caught up with that. Like if he doesn't earn it, he will not be on the team, which you can't always say about last year's third round pick. I would say watching their team, they wouldn't even hesitate if they don't.
Especially when you just used another third round pick on a running back.
How many players have more on the line than him in this preseason? I bet he's going to get a lot of carries.
Feels kind of like who's the other Ohio State running back they had who immediately it was like, yeah, Carlos Hyde.
Carlos Hyde, yeah.
And he ended up having
Sermon would die to be as good as Hyde.
More productive.
Hyde wasn't that great, but I know what you're saying. It's one thing with running backs. God, they do get a lot of hype. Like they're just pretty famous coming into the league if they've played at a bigger program, right? Like if you start a running back at Texas, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Bama, Georgia, USC, it's like most people know who you are, right? Casual football fans, like, damn, I remember watching that guy a couple Saturday night games. These guys sweet, right? They just because they're stars in college. Like if you're a starting running back, like Bryce Hall at Iowa State, like they just become kind of in the vernacular of college football. And a lot of NFL fans, you just end up watching some college football games, and usually the best players are the quarterbacks and the running backs. It's not like I remember this corner, you know,
Bijan Robinson of Texas.
Well, the hype on him is going to be. I mean, I have a buddy that does that area that thinks he's like a top 20 pick. But Sermon, that's where Sermon is. He's the most famous of the group, even more than Price, because Oklahoma and Ohio State, and then he had those moments for Fields teams, you know, where he broke the. How many people were watching Ohio State in that Big Ten game? 9 million in the Big Ten championship. We know. I mean, their ratings are the amount of people that witnessed them. He got hurt in the Natty, but didn't he have like 200 yards in the semi?
In the semis, he played really well. It was a big deal when he got hurt.
What was it, like 15 million people watching that game? Like he had an eyeballs on him.
Maybe more. Not a lot more, but maybe more. I want to get back to Jay, who says, I missed today's fireworks. Thoughts on the O-line? I mean, yeah, are we sure who their left guard's going to be?
No, you got to be careful what you make of the one-on-one pass rush drills. I couldn't tell. It might have been Kundiche. It could have been. I don't think it was. It wasn't Kinlaw. I don't exactly know who the defensive tackle was, but they have a ton of like very functional defensive tackles. Destroyed Banks. I mean, destroyed him, which you don't, guys get bad reps. It's another thing to get like lifted and shoved. It was one rep concerning. I think we said this yesterday, second round pick, Notre Dame, lock to start. I don't know if any guard or center is a lock to start on this team. I think the 2 starters are McGlinchey, Trent Williams, and the rest is kind of open for business.
Is J.C. Treader just going to almost sign with somebody, or is he going to
maybe he just goes into
Tampa Bay Buck? Is he skipping a few weeks of camp, or
going to
need to get in shape?
Become a lawyer or something? I don't know.
I mean, they need a guy, don't they, in Tampa?
I will say this: if I do think it's fair. Well, I gave a guy a pass the first year, and I remember texting with Schwartz. He's like, when I first got in the league, linemen, like first round picks, got more time. You didn't draft a guy in the 3rd round like this guy to start. If he was good enough, he did. But if he didn't, it wasn't the end of the world, and the guy would start the second year. If Banks can't win the starting job week 1, that was a bad pick.
Yeah,
that was a bad pick.
2nd rounder by year 2 when you need him. When you need him, it's not like he's getting beat out by somebody who.
I'd say there's a chance that if Banks can't win the job, and Sermon is either cut or like barely hanging on, like it's a little rough stretch, 2nd and 3rd round for the Niners.
Yeah, if you hit on Trey Lance, I mean, it's
I know, but it's you only get so many 2nd and 3rd rounders. Like you can find Debo's, you can find Fred Warner's. Well,
the 2nd rounder they get for Jimmy Garoppolo will be their chance at redemption.
That's true.
The Miami Dolphins, John, Mike McDaniel's team, owner suspended. Which I don't know exactly what that means. 6 games. They lost their 1st round pick in 2023. And they lost the 2nd round pick.
Damn, I didn't know that.
They have the Niners first rounder, right? Yeah. And what I didn't realize till you explained it to me, I thought this was all the Brian Flores story.
No.
But the SEC investigation, or at least the investigator that came from the SEC who ran this investigation, also dug into communication tampering, basically, with Tom Brady and Sean Payton.
I think we've learned in the NBA, the only people that get in trouble tampering are the executives and the ownership and the teams. Like, you can be the player and take the phone whenever. Like, you can't tamper as a player. Which,
remember
to
the
you,
NBA player was it Joe Smith from Maryland, who had like an under the table, I think the contract he signed, they paid him like under the table.
Yeah.
I
remember something like that. Yeah. But I think the agent got in trouble for that and the team. I
can't remember like what happened to his money.
Yeah, I feel like they never blame the player. They just blame the parties that be doing the deal, which I do believe is fair. I will say this about Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady knows what he's doing and knows what he's talking about at 44 years old, talking about equity in the team. Now, it's not, and plus he's best friends with Stephen Ross's right-hand guy that supposedly like gets to own the team. Like, so Stephen Ross is not always going to own the team. He's not going to own the team till death. He's going to give it up. Like, this guy's just going to take over. A little weird. So clearly this stuff is going to get talked about, like, welcome to the real world. But I get, like, the way I heard it driving down to practice, people on the radio describing it, again, McAfee and his guys, where it's pretty clear that, like, the Glazers and the Bensons, and it might have been Jason Light, it could have been Mickey Loomis, were like, fuck this. You don't get to call my coach, or you don't get to call my player. I don't blame those two places for being hot with this guy talking to their guys during the season. Like that, honestly, it might be less the Glazers and more like Jason Light. Like, you're talking to Tom Brady during the season. What the fuck? Would that shock you if, like, internally, like, their executive crew was pissed off? Like, this is bullshit. There's a deal with tampering, like, at the combine, right? And there's another thing, like, calling my guy in October. Stephen Ross.
Also, if it's your GM trying to back channel, you're the owner. Like, all the owners are on the same team with each other, right? GMs are competing against other GMs. Owners are all on the same team. Like, I think that feels more like a betrayal to other teams than if somebody's executive did it, right?
Is there a chance, kind of like David Stern booted Michael Jordan, that Roger Goodell told Tom Brady to go away, and then Tom Brady begged his way back in.
Oh, that it was like some secret double secret punishment. Doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that to Tom Brady?
I agree. Plus, Raj owes him, screwed him for Deflategate. Yeah. Sided with Grigson over Tom Brady. That's got to be the worst decision in the history of the league.
Sorry, correction. 2023 third rounder. So a first rounder, 2023 first rounder.
Yeah.
2024 third rounder.
So they staggered it for him.
For when it's going to suck for Sean Payton when he takes over.
I love that. McAfee was making fun. They fined him $1.5 million. Do you remember when F1 went to Miami? I guess it was reported that Stephen Ross made more facilitating that than he did all the Dolphins games. Like the amount of money he just made, like $1.5 million. This guy, it'd be like, guy, I'm going to fine you $18.50. You're like, got me, John. That's going to hurt. No going out to eat with my wife this weekend. It's like, give it $1.5 million. Like the draft picks hurt. Like you take away a first round pick. Like let's say they go 7 and 10. Like that's pick 13. Like that's a big deal. The fines are so stupid, are so dumb. To fine an owner. Like I'd argue if you're gonna fine an owner for something serious, what would be like his number starts at $20 million or something? It's got to be something where you're like, fuck you.
Well, I think draft picks are the most detrimental thing you can do to most of these guys, right? Because that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. You've really hurt your team. That's far more detrimental. Like
how about
an owner, if given the choice between a $5 million fine and losing their first round pick, they'd pay the $5 million fine.
How about this?
$10 million.
Do you know what the fine is? Deducted from your salary cap. So if it's a $2 million fine, your next salary cap, you have $2 million less than the rest of the league.
That's a great idea.
Would that piss some people off? Like that would hesitate you.
A 6-game suspension? Well, you might as well ban me from watching TV, and I don't have TV.
I know. That's what McAfee was like.
No
so
more
what?
ice cream for you, but you hate ice cream.
So what? He gets to watch the games from his 17,000 square foot mansion somewhere, or maybe on his yacht. Like that's what are we talking about? The owner? No one even notices.
Does the NFL have team security at the Miami Dolphins stadium? Would they know if he showed up? He pays the security guards like their salary. They're going to be like, Mr. Goodell, Stephen Ross is trying to sneak in with a mustache looking like Bobby Valentine.
Theory, any chance they try to do this to get people off the scent of the other thing they got going on? Or is it just, it won't even matter?
I mean, not a terrible theory. Like, Stephen, you fucked up. You owe us. You're going to have to wear this one.
They have, I guess, 2 more days for Deshaun.
Wednesday,
or maybe
Thursday.
Did it start yesterday? So maybe we're 24 hours in.
Start Monday.
Gets 3 days.
Tim Patrick suffered a torn ACL in Tuesday's practice for the Broncos. NFL headlines, courtesy of Roto World. Deebo Samuel says he's quote unquote willing to do whatever it takes to win when asked about his role.
Agreed.
James Washington suffered a broken foot in Monday's practice, expected to miss the next 6 to 10 weeks for the Dallas Cowboys. Owner Jerry Jones, who spoke immediately afterwards, said there's no urgency to get a veteran receiver.
Jerry talks so much. Jerry talks more than his head coach. Hey, guys, I got you. Jerry's got to be pretty exhausting. I do truly believe to my core the Dallas Cowboys become, and this is going to sound weird because he'll give you all the money, become a lot more desirable for the elite coaches once. And I'm not rooting for the guy to pass away, but like he is old. Whenever that day comes, I do think the Cowboys, Steven feels like a little more consistent of a human being, right?
I love this on Roto World. They have like player headlines. It says Sky Moore, receiver, Chiefs. Stephen Ross, Miami Dolphins.
What's it say about Hollywood?
Hollywood Brown is back.
Okay. Do you think he hopped on the console last night at home?
Yeah.
No Twitch. Just solo. Just get a couple reps in.
Kyler?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What film would he be studying right now?
Practice. You think? I mean, they're sending him the practice film. Do you think they mandated him do some write-ups on the practice film and then send it back when he's off? Or is he like, NFLPA, you can't talk to me?
That's the crazy thing about them removing that. The whole thing makes no sense because how are they ever? What a mess. I stand by. Clearly, the owner got involved, wanted that clause in there. There's no way Steve Keim put that clause in there. And it's just a mess.
Is there a
Just
chance? I told Gottlieb this theory that I was wrong. Because
Is he
I guess
back from Israel?
yeah. I guess Rap Sheet. You see Casey Close? He was in the Jeter doc.
I did. Well, he's Jeter's. He co-produced the thing.
Yeah. I was like, that's a tough guy to go after. He feels like pretty powerful. That what was I just about to say? What were we talking about?
Casey Close.
What were we talking about before Casey Close? Completely lost my train of thought. I don't even know.
Oh, Kyler. Gaming.
My theory is that I guess Rap Sheet told Dan Patrick Rap Sheet was personally going through the contract looking for a baseball clause so he could tweet or talk about it on NFL Network. That's when he stumbled upon the homework clause. He claims like I was going through it because I was going to talk about it. And I was like, I'm not calling bullshit. But my theory is that the team put it in knowing they were going to leak it and kind of okay with ultimately taking it out or whatever to kind of embarrass him. Which, if that's true, is kind of crazy. But it's like, what if you're Michael Bidwell? You felt like you're obligated to pay him. You're like, you're stuck. But like, I'm going to embarrass this guy to really try to put one on him.
It just makes you look so bad.
I know.
Too.
Do you believe that Rap Sheet was just randomly going through looking for a baseball clause? I think someone gave it to him.
I think it was given. I don't think he was just reading through the contract looking for a baseball clause.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just, if you're that connected, wouldn't you just ask somebody, send them a text like, hey, is there a baseball clause in this thing?
Well, 100%. Well, so to me, if someone gives it to him, someone's giving it to him with an angle. So is it Kyler's side or is it the team side? Or could it just be like some team? Could it be like Parag? Like, look at this idiot.
Well, these contracts all get uploaded to like an NFL database.
Everyone has access to it in the NFL. Yeah.
In the NFL.
It could, yeah, it could be Howie could have given it to him. You know, any team in the league looks through it. And every team with a big contract, I vividly remember listening to Howie talk about it. Whenever a contract was signed, because you always have to be ready for your own team, right? You have maybe not like your Parag, but like Hampton would just go through it and like then you would talk like, look, this is what the new precedent is. I would imagine that once the contract got uploaded, it went like wildfire through the league, right? GMs and the contract people bullshitting.
You think they all read through it looking for
I think
something?
Well, I don't think every high-end guy does, but every team has like someone in their staff that goes through and highlights things that they would have to implement moving forward. And that would be something that sticks out. Like, hey, Howie, check this shit out. Because you would always want to know the new, especially the big contracts, right? What's it look like? What's in there? Besides just the basic shit.
Yeah.
This has to be something that was like, I bet it went like wildfire throughout the league whenever it got uploaded. Beyond like, there's a what?
There are two teams. There's a couple like the Cardinals are starting their season in a very weird place. The Dolphins are starting their season in a weird place.
Are they though? The Dolphins?
Yeah, I just think
Cardinals
maybe
more than the Dolphins, I think, with an owner.
I agree with that because most of everything that's happened with the Dolphins is on the outside. But I just think for the Dolphins, it's a first-time head coach, and the Tua stuff is just. And Tyreek I don't think has made it easier.
I've stumbled on NFL Network, like, I think like Saturday, and it was like Willie McGinnis and Rhett, or, you know, one of the posts.
Red Lewis, yeah.
And it's easier when you have like it's Willie McGinnis or Steve Smith. They're just sitting there with Tua, and like they're just going to ask him something that a reporter would ease into. Willie's like, well, Tua, the elephant in the room is like people don't think you're good enough. What, you know, it's like, and you just realize like Tua gets asked this a lot. Like, do you think you're going to survive? You know, like, that is kind of the basic premise of it. Like, Tua, do you think you're going to survive as the Dolphins quarterback for the next, like, are you going to be here for the future, or could this be your last year?
It's crazy. If you were Tua Tagovailoa, first round pick from a lot of other places, Like he's in Miami. He's not in Philly. He's not playing for the Jet. He's in Miami. Dude,
I think it has more to do with the Herbert and Joe Burrow thriving and him sucking.
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely Herbert, and that he came from Alabama, and a lot of people had the opinion that he was better than Herbert.
Tank for Tua.
I said earlier,
the Dolphins literally did. They took him over Herbert, right? Part of it is like the GM's still there. This guy was picked over the other guy. Like, and then it's like, wait, you had him ranked? How'd you have him ranked above him?
Easy for everybody to say now, right?
Herbert did go 6th, right? It's not like, well, this guy ended up 18th, went 6th.
Part of it is Herbert is such a physical monster, and Tua, that's not what he is.
It's the worst case scenario ever for a team because not only is like the physical freak that I think people had some questions on, like look good, he became a star immediately. And like players around the league were like, holy shit, look at this guy. It happened fast. It snowballed on the Dolphins probably quicker than anyone could have ever imagined. It happened within like 5 weeks. Herbert became a stud playing. Tua couldn't play. And then Fitzpatrick. And then they had to bench him. Remember, Tua got implemented, most people think, because people are like, well, we got to see what our guy looks like, even though Ryan Fitzpatrick, they were decent.
John, I made a statement earlier, which I'm going to take back, which is that I read any paid comment. Where I lost this one. John got pod with Cowherd. You scared he'll ever leave. That's not a $2 comment, but not as long as we keep making money. I feel okay.
We're in good shape.
The beauty of Colin Cowherd is that he is one of the, if not the biggest media personalities in existence today. And it brings us more listeners.
It's worked.
So no complaints, but don't be a douchebag. Anything else today?
No.
Anthony Lynn didn't see it somehow, Lee says, on Herbert.
I think Anthony Lynn was desperate to save his job and wanted to go with the veteran quarterback. I think it probably boils down to that simple. And ultimately, he implemented Herbert, who was awesome. They still lost a bunch of weird games, and he lost his job. And now he's a running back coach for the 49ers. He was the head coach for a year with Justin Herbert, and now he's a running back coach. Like, it's... Life comes at, there's a chance Anthony Lynn knows, like, I'm not an OC, right? I'm very dependent. Like,
but why is he not an OC? I mean, his offense was pretty good.
Yeah, he's a running guy. Like, it was like he was Rex Ryan's OC when they were top running. Like, teams want passing. Whether it's fair or not, maybe he becomes a good passing game guy with Kyle. I think my point, though, is I wonder if Anthony's like, if I get fired here, there's no guarantee I'll ever be a head coach again. This is my shot. I do think people think weird when they're desperate because you're like, well, you're going to go down with Tyrod Taylor. Now he'd go, well, like Justin Herbert, we all just had questions about him at Oregon. Now you think I'm going to stake my wagon to him in like week 4 of his rookie year in a COVID season? Was it COVID? Yeah, it was 2020.
Yeah, because remember, part of the deal was like there's no fans in the stands. Is Herbert? Can you really do this again in front of crowds?
I kind of thought that.
Yeah.
Not, I guess I didn't think that, but it was like, well, is it really this easy? And I was like, yeah, it's easier.
I got to go back. I was thinking about it today. There's a touchdown.
DJ called the best pass he's ever seen live when he rolled right and he threw it like 75 yards. I forget who it was against. Maybe the Giants or something.
NFL
he made a pass in 2021 that was like, I'm not sure who else does that.
I got to find the Herbert touchdown against Auburn that he threw a couple years ago. That was a pretty eye-opening throw. I mean, Tua had some great throws in college too, but Justin is just absolute physical freak, and it's going to work against his coach now if they don't win.
Yeah, I think the craziest part about Herbert, and I'd throw Josh Allen here too. Patrick Mahomes' comp is like the better version of Favre. And part of Favre was like no one had a better arm than Favre. It was like Favre came in, it was like better arm than Marino and Elway, but it's like Herbert and Allen actually have a better arm than Mahomes. That was crazy. Like Mahomes, modern day Favre, yet these other two guys have bigger arms. But it's not like Mahomes doesn't have an elite arm, but these other guys have like all-time arms. I feel like if Herbert or Allen had to throw an 80-yard go route, they could do it. Like whatever Mahomes can do, like it feels like those guys can throw it 5 yards farther. And again, we're talking like one guy hits a 330-yard drive, the other guy can just hit a 340. Right?
I think you see it when they throw deep balls down the seam in the pocket, but when they move and they have to throw it to, I think they're just Mahomes' ball just has a little more arc in it, where those guys throw laser beams.
Yeah. I wonder who's got the better arm between the two of them.
Who would you pick?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm inclined to go Herbert.
Yeah, I guess my first reaction was going to be Allen. I mean, it's probably pretty close. I mean, it might just depend on the win that day. I mean, I think they're pretty similar. I think Josh might be a little bit more fluid athlete, where Herbert might be a little bigger. Again, we're nitpicking. Like, I mean, these guys are thoroughbreds. If you just went around the league, non-Mahomes, like those two guys would have to be the number 1 or 2 pick for every GM, right? That's what I want my guy to be like. 6'5", 6'6", can run, huge arm, great guy.
Well, not all 32 would take Mahomes number 1, right?
I think Allen and Herbert would get some picks.
Yeah.
Mahomes, you got to like Mahomes. Like Andy likes creativity. Like Andy kind of likes living on the edge. Like,
artistry.
He's been doing this like 50 years. He gets a little bored. Like he likes just kind of. Herbert is. I would say Allen is closer to Mahomes in terms of like he freelances. Herbert plays within the system. Herbert's really closer to an older school quarterback with a little freelance, but I feel more he's less likely to do like 360 and jump over a guy. Not that he can, but Mahomes is king of that. Allen's got a little bit of that why he's fun. Herbert is more fun just because he just throws consistent bombs. But I don't feel like crazier shit, even though he can. Maybe he'll do it this year. I don't know.
All right. We'll be back at Niner practice on Wednesday, which means we'll be back here on Wednesday. And yeah, that's that. Anything else? Oh, review 5 stars. Leave us a mailbag question.
Share with your friends. Yeah.
Get after
Smash-
that, Tito.
smash
Send us
the
some
like.
Tito's pictures.
Yeah. Instagram us.
Adios, pelota.